Welcome to Dashing Dish. Gluten-free cooking. Is it really worth all the hype? And what is it all about? My mom is joining me in the kitchen today as we prove gluten-free cooking can be just as fun and easy as anything else as we enjoy and prepare our favorites. 25-minute flourless everything bagels, juicy low-carb chicken strips served with zucchini fries that are breaded in a crispy Parmesan coating, and easy-to-make garlic Parmesan breadsticks. All gluten-free and made with a healthy twist. Come join me in the kitchen. Today's all about gluten-free cooking, and we are making one of my absolute favorite breakfast staples, which is a 25-minute flourless everything bagel. Now you might be wondering, how is a bagel made without flour? Well, it's not technically flourless, but we swapped out all the white flour, even the whole wheat, which contains gluten, and we're using a gluten-free swap out that is so easy to make at home. And it is old-fashioned oat flour. So if you've never used oat flour, you can make it right at home by just taking some old-fashioned oats and grinding them up into a flour in your blender or food processor. It's that simple. And the great thing about oat flour is it's entirely gluten-free. So I'm gonna do 1.5 cups of old-fashioned oat flour that's been ground into a flour. Then we have 1 teaspoon of salt, 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. So those 2 ingredients will cause the bagels to rise up a little bit and also be soft and tender on the inside. Now the great thing about these bagels is they actually toast up really well. So you can make them into a breakfast sandwich, you can serve them for lunch or for dinner and have them with a side of eggs. That's something that we like to do in my house a lot, is have breakfast for dinner. So these toast up, they hold up to just about any topping that you put on them. They're also great to make ahead and pop them in the freezer so you can have them for a really busy morning. Now I'm adding 1 cup of plain Greek yogurt, then 1 egg, and I'm just gonna mix this together, and you can see how simple this was. So now we'll put the dough onto a piece of parchment paper, just like that. And what I like to do is I like to kind of form a rectangle out of the dough. And that allows me to just kind of evenly break off or cut apart some balls. But you could skip this part. You can just literally take pieces of the dough right out of the bowl, and then you just kind of roll the dough into balls. And you can do 5 or 6 bagels out of this. I'm making 4, so they'll be a little bit larger bagels. So I'm just gonna put these balls onto a baking pan that's lined with parchment paper. And then, now that we have our bagels formed, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna form a little bit of a hole inside here with my finger. So if you wanna take some flour and kind of dust your finger so it won't stick, that'll help. And then I'm just gonna make a nice little hole inside the bagels. And when these bake, they'll rise and they'll also kind of expand a little bit. So you wanna leave a little bit of room around each bagel. Then I'm gonna make an egg wash to go on top. And this is really simple. An egg wash is just simply 1 egg that's beaten in a bowl. So you just beat up 1 egg in a bowl and then you just brush it on top with a little pastry brush. And all this does is when the bagels bake, it not only helps the seasoning stick really well, it's almost like a glue, but it also causes the bagels to brown up nice and golden on top and have almost that crunchy, a little bit more of a crunchy exterior when you toast them, and a soft inside. Then I have the secret ingredient, the best part of these bagels, the everything seasoning. Now the everything seasoning you can get at almost any grocery store now if you look in the seasoning section, but you can also buy it online. I actually found this just at my local grocery store, and it's just a combination of poppy seeds, sesame seeds, coarse sea salt, and some garlic and onion. So you could always make your own as well. So you just kind of sprinkle it on. I think the recipe calls for 1 tablespoon, but you really can just eyeball it. There's no technical way to do that. Now I'm gonna bake these 375 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. And when we come back, we're gonna make a delicious Parmesan breadstick that will absolutely blow your mind that it can also be gluten-free. We've had a joke in my family for as long as I can remember that whenever I make food for a family gathering, it's always made with extra gluten. The joke initially came about when my brother-in-law Phil started to go gluten-free about 8 years ago. Within a few weeks, my mom and dad also decided to go gluten-free to reduce inflammation and improve their overall health. From that time forward, it seemed that every family meal was filled with conversation about gluten. And because I prepared the food, my mom would always ask, "Which of your dishes are gluten-free?" One year at Christmas, I made the mistake of making 2 different kinds of pancakes. And it seemed as if I was asked at least 20 times, which pancakes are gluten-free? My brother-in-law Brett could sense that I was getting irritated, as I was repeating the answer again and again. And being the family clown that he is, he shouted, "They're all made with extra gluten. Don't you know?" It has since become a running joke that despite the fact that many of my recipes are gluten-free, the ones that I make for my family always have an extra dose of gluten. Next up, we're making a 15-minute gluten-free garlic Parmesan breadstick. And these are great to have as a side, but also as a light lunch or just an appetizer. It's a really great way to surprise your friends that you can make a breadstick gluten-free. So I have in the bowl here just 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and that's gonna act as a binder for these breadsticks, but also add a lot of flavor. In place of flour in this recipe, we're gonna use my second favorite gluten-free flour, which is almond flour. So we have 1 1/4 cup of almond flour. Then to this, I'm gonna add 1 egg and 1 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And just a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And that's as simple as it is. So I'm just gonna mix this together until a dough forms. So I added just a little bit of almond milk to this mixture. And what that did is it just brought it together into a dough. So just, I'd say, about a tablespoon. I have a little bowl here in case I needed some more. So you just wanna get it so that it's a nice dough ball in your hands. Then I have a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. And I'm just gonna kind of work this dough onto the baking pan. So you'll just kind of form a rectangle here. It doesn't have to be perfect, unless of course maybe you're doing some entertaining and you want it to be perfect looking. Then to make the topping very simple, just like the bagels, I have an egg wash here, and I'm gonna just brush the top with some egg wash. Not only will this help the topping stick, just like a glue, but also it will make the top nice and golden brown. And a lot of times I think when people go gluten-free, my mom, my brother-in-law, my sister all went gluten-free a few years ago, they think that they have to give up their favorite foods, especially bread products. But that's absolutely not the case. And that's what I like to teach at Dashing Dish, is that you really can have all of your favorites. You don't have to give up the things you love most. You can still enjoy all of your favorite foods, but in a healthier way. And that's what I like to recreate at Dashing Dish. Oftentimes, I'll look at menus at restaurants and I'll think of different ways to put a healthy spin on traditional recipes and restaurant dishes so that you can make them at home. Now I'm just doing a little bit of Parmesan cheese, some parsley, some garlic powder, and some onion powder. So this will bake up absolutely delicious and it will give it a lot of flavor. So now all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut these into breadsticks. So just grab a really sharp knife or a pizza cutter. And we're gonna cut it into breadsticks before popping it in the oven. And then as they bake up, you can check on them about halfway through and kind of separate them once they've baked a little bit. So these will bake up perfectly. Just pop them in a 350-degree oven for about 15 minutes. If you feel you are sensitive to gluten, here are a few tips to go gluten-free. First, start by swapping out pastas, breads, and wheat products for a gluten-free version. Next, take a closer look at sauces, spices, and other products. These tend to be the sneakiest when it comes to additives that contain gluten. Lastly, many restaurants have gluten-free options. Just be sure to make special requests to be ensured that your dish is served gluten-free. Coming up next, my mom joins me in the kitchen to prove you can be gluten-free and still enjoy chicken strips and fries. Today is all about gluten-free, easy, delicious cooking and baking. And my mom is here with me today. Thanks for joining me, Mom.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited. Thank you.
And she actually had to go gluten-free for health reasons years ago. And so a lot of times when it comes to gluten-free cooking and baking, she calls me up and she's like, hey, do you have a recipe for this? So today we're gonna make a really simple lunch or dinner recipe, and it's one of my favorites because it's all made on one big baking sheet tray. So there's nothing easier than that. It's zucchini and chicken strip fries in a crispy Parmesan coating. So Mom, in order to make the zucchini fries, I'm just gonna have you cut off the tops and the ends of the zucchini and then cut it into kind of matchstick fries. There's no right or wrong way to do it, however you can think of making a fry. The only thing you wanna think about here is just making everything the even size so it cooks and bakes up the same speed.
Perfect.
Okay, so while you do that, I'm gonna make my breading and my egg wash to do for the zucchini and the chicken strips. They're all going into the same bowl. We're gonna start by breading the zucchini first, just so we don't contaminate it with the chicken. Even though they're all baking together, I just like to keep chicken and veggies as separate as I can. So to make the breading, really simple, I'm gonna do 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of dried parsley, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of onion powder. Now, if you're not a huge fan of onions, you don't have to add the onion powder, it'll still be delicious. 3/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and then 1 cup of almond flour. So we used almond flour to make our breadsticks. We're gonna use it again in this segment, and it's a great ingredient to add to any kind of breading because it bakes up really crispy. So anytime that you find breadcrumbs or any kind of breading, you can pretty much swap out any breadcrumbs for almond flour. So Mom, when did you find out that you needed to go gluten-free?
Well, I had digestive problems all my life, probably from my 20s on, but it wasn't until I started developing severe joint pain about 2 years ago. And a friend actually called me and said, you need to try to go gluten-free. And probably within 2 weeks, the majority of all of my symptoms went away. And then I had some blood work done and found out that I'm celiac. And so, you know, being gluten-free really is so important. And, you know, it's made a huge difference in the way I feel.
Yeah, and being that I'm a former nurse, one of the things that we did learn about in nursing school was celiac disease. And so celiac disease is actually a condition that's completely triggered by gluten and what we eat. But I was sharing earlier that even if you're not completely gluten-free, we found that people in our family have benefited from going gluten-free, even if they don't have celiac disease.
That's right.
Just because you're cutting out so many of the processed flours and the processed ingredients that we see in a lot of the white bread and the white pasta. So I made my dry ingredients for the breading in 1 shallow bowl, and then I'm just gonna add 2 eggs into another bowl, and that will be what will cause that breading to stick. And those look good, Mom.
Thanks.
So it looks like you're just kind of cutting them all the same size, and so that's perfect. Have you found that it's been challenging to go gluten-free?
I think the most challenging thing really is eating out. And That's why I love, your recipes, Kate, because it allows me things that I really enjoy, without the fear of getting sick.
Right.
So there's a lot of hidden gluten in restaurants.
And too, with processed foods, so things like chicken nuggets and fries, you might look at it in a bag at the grocery store and you think, oh, this seems safe. It doesn't look like there's any bread in this or any wheat products.
Right.
Because that's ultimately where gluten comes from, is from the wheat plant. But a lot of times it's very hidden and subtle in recipes. And so if you buy even a processed, let's say, chicken nugget, typically there's going to be gluten in it.
That's
and
right.
so if you can make it at home as simply as this, then why not? So this looks good for our egg wash. We just beat together 2 eggs in a bowl. And when we come back, we're going to bread our zucchini fries and our chicken strips, and we're going to make a special sauce to go with them. After years of disordered eating, I remember walking out my journey to freedom, and how in that season, I would always take walks down the same path near my parents' home. I started to notice a butterfly that seemed to follow me along the walking path. It happened almost every single day, again and again, until suddenly I started to think, what if this butterfly is being used by God to speak to my heart during this really difficult season? So I asked the Lord to show me in His Word if there was any significance about butterflies. As I began to flip through the pages of my Bible, one scripture stood out to me about transformation. Romans 12:2 says, "And do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may be able to prove what the good, acceptable, and perfect will of God is." I had spent years believing lies and wrong thoughts about my identity and self-worth. And God used this scripture in Romans to remind me that my transformation would take place from the inside out. As I began to think about the transformation of a caterpillar to a butterfly, I realized how closely it parallels renewing our minds. It takes time and effort for the caterpillar to build its cocoon, and it may appear on the outside that nothing is happening. However, the greatest change of all is still occurring on the inside, little by little, day by day. It's only a matter of time before we see the beautiful butterfly break forth. And it's then that we can see what was taking place all along. So we're back with gluten-free cooking today, and my mom is here joining me in the kitchen, and she has to go completely gluten-free. So she's making some gluten-free chicken fingers and zucchini fries in a crispy Parmesan coating. And so Mom, I'll have you take your zucchini that you cut up and the chicken tenders. Now you could either buy a chicken breast and you can cut it yourself with some kitchen shears or a sharp knife, or you can just buy the chicken tenders already cut for you. Just go ahead and dip the zucchini first in the egg mixture, then the breading, then the pan. And you don't have to necessarily do it all. You can just kind of do maybe about half, and we can always save some zucchini since it's just you and I.
Okay,
for later.
That's great.
And I'm gonna make a special sauce to go with the zucchini fries and the chicken tenders. It starts with 1 cup of plain Greek yogurt. Now you'll love this sauce, not only for dipping things like chicken tenders and French fries at home, but also to put on burgers, to put on a sandwich. You can dip anything into it, veggies. I like to make it a lot of times for anytime we have a cookout, because almost anything you make on the grill is great with this special sauce. So it's 1 cup of Greek yogurt, and then 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/2 teaspoon of paprika, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Then 1 tablespoon of any kind of sweetener that you like. I'm gonna do 1 tablespoon of honey. And you can kind of just eyeball this. Then 1/3 cup of ketchup. Now you might be thinking, ketchup, that's strange, but think about it. What tastes great with fries?
Ketchup.
And chicken fingers. If Sean were here, he would definitely approve and agree with that point.
I think your husband, Sean, likes anything with ketchup.
That's true. Same with Maddie and Sean. They are the ketchup lovers at our house. I have to have basically a gallon-sized ketchup in my fridge at all times because of them. And then 2 tablespoons of mustard. And again, this goes great with anything that you would make at a cookout, ketchup and mustard. So in place of where you would think of mayonnaise usually on a burger or a sandwich, that's where the Greek yogurt comes in and makes a creamy sauce. And it's much better for you than mayonnaise. much lighter in calories and fat, but also a good source of protein.
And so, I think everybody likes a dipping sauce.
And with dipping sauces, I find that that's the most tricky with gluten, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. As I was saying before, gluten is hidden in everything, especially prepared sauces. So I like the fact that you know everything that's going in there.
Yeah, so I'm just mixing this all together. Then you can give it a little taste and just see if you want to add some more seasoning or some more salt. You could do any kind of seasonings in this. You could do some cumin and some chili powder and make kind of like a taco version, or with some more heat by doing maybe some jalapenos or even some radish or some relish in here would be delicious.
So for just the two of us, do you think this is good, Kate?
Yep, I think that's great.
Awesome.
One last ingredient I'm going to add to my special sauce that gives it that zip, that tang, that's kind of missing when you take out the mayonnaise, and that's white vinegar. So 1 to 2 teaspoons of white vinegar, depending on how kind of tangy you like it. I like it a little more tangy, so I'll do 2 teaspoons. And this looks really good. And you can leave this sauce in your fridge for up to 10 days. It stays good for. What I like to do when I make my own sauces is just put it in a mason jar with a lid. And then I usually write on the lid how long it's good for. That way I know how long it will stay good in my fridge for. Doesn't that look good, Mom?
It looks delicious. You know what I love about, chicken fingers, zucchini fries, and of course the sauce? It's great for leftovers too.
That's true.
In fact, your sister made some zucchini fries. I got to eat some at her house yesterday, and they were just delicious. So I'm excited about these. 2 days in a row of zucchini fries.
Yeah, that does look good. So
right.
We're gonna bake these at 425 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes until all the coating gets golden brown. You also will wanna make sure your chicken is cooked through at 165 degrees or higher, and that's how you'll know it's done. Coming up next, my mom gives it the ultimate taste test. Did I succeed in proving that you can make bagels and breadsticks delicious and gluten-free? We will see. Do you have health conditions that could be impacted by your choices? If so, seek God for wisdom. Ask Him to help you navigate and overcome unhealthy habits and find better alternatives. It may seem difficult at first, but every time we take a step of obedience, God's peace and provision is far better than any temporary source of satisfaction. Well, Mom, I had so much fun with you today in the kitchen. Thanks for joining me. And look we made an entire gluten-free menu and absolutely delicious. We made some juicy chicken tenders and some crispy breadcrumb-coated zucchini fries.
Well, I'm excited to try it. It looks so good, Katie.
And a special sauce to go with it. Let's try it.
Looks delicious. Really good.
That's good. And we made the breadsticks and the 25-minute everything bagels that I put in your fridge for breakfast tomorrow.
I'm pretty excited about trying those.
Those are really
too.
good toasted up as a sandwich. Well, I always love being with you, especially in the kitchen. For more recipes just like these, head over to dashingdish.com where you'll find recipes and more that nourish your body and soul.